Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Biology. What's your BSA score? The Biology Skill Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NIA and NJCAA to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 10-minute, 100-shot test can be taken for free today on the Biology mobile app. Elevate your game. What coaches or leaders do you follow closely?
I have several here. Some aren't even basketball related. But I mean, first and foremost, I think about people who've influenced me even years ago. Like I was a big John Maxwell fan and I still love Maxwell. But I remember some of the very first books that impacted me were John Maxwell books, like the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Going back a ways. I remember reading him fresh out of college, which has been a while. But I would say today, I try to connect with people that I kind of know on a more personal level. Not that I don't love a good John Gordon book or something like that, but I would say, for example, my good friend Kevin Carroll. Kevin's an assistant coach at Lipscomb, and the way he attacks leadership is just really phenomenal. He's an excellent communicator. His kind of go-to is like live your legacy. Like think about the end. Think of the end in mind as you make all your decisions, whether it's a player, as a coach. Like if you're a player, when you walk off that floor for the last time, there's a good chance it won't be in a championship game. There's a good chance your career will end with a loss, Yeah. But what do you want that to be like and feel like, and what do you want your relationships to be like? So Kevin Carroll is one that, I've really learned a lot from over the years. And then I would say, I know he's a popular name now, but even Phil Beckner, Phil spoke at last year's clinic, and he and I have stayed connected and speak every once in a while and text frequently. But, his Be Better, Be Different kind of slogan, that was what we did for our team this year. It's simple. It's concise. It doesn't really have a lot of explanation behind it. It's just like be better, be different in every situation. And that was, we wore Be Better, Be Different shirts for our pregame.
Nice.
And I just think that, guys like that I can connect with. And these guys put really great things on social media. So if you're listening, Kevin Carroll, Phil Beckner, and obviously Phil Beckner, he's really blown up with his training and his work with, pros. But like his stuff is really, really relevant. And then I would say outside of basketball, Andy Stanley, he's the pastor at North Point. I love, as a Christian, I appreciate, Christian values and what he brings. And then, as an economics teacher, I like Dave Ramsey. I mean, I look at Dave Ramsey, I look at Andy Stanley, two completely different communication styles, but yet it's all about taking ownership of your actions, a lot of it. So those are, some people that I really like their leadership style and their communication style, and they just put things in a way that's easier for me to grasp and understand. And I use a lot of their slogans and things with my players. They may not even know it. Obviously, Be Better, Be Different is one from Phil, but there's a lot of great leaders out there and a lot of people out there who put this into action, on a daily basis.
Yeah, going back to that first one that you said about leaving a legacy and thinking, starting with that in mind, like I think that's so powerful because most of us high school coaches and most colleges now we have just finished our season. And so we've said goodbye to the senior class, and now the juniors are in our mind or eyes are seniors now. Like literally tomorrow, I'm going to sit down with this group of seniors during lunch, and we're just going to talk about what you want your next season to look like. But I think framing it around that legacy piece, like that just puts you on a really good path because it's more than state championship, more than wins, more than points, individual accolades. It's about something bigger. And that's really what we want our guys to hold on to.
Oh, I agree 100%. And I think, and those of us who teach, and this should become fairly simple for us, a lot of our administrators and things like us to do things in reverse. What was the backward design lesson plans was popular years ago. You really went to that final test, that final exam, and went backwards from it. Well, the same thing we do in basketball and also relationships. Like, if I want my relationship with my players, or they want their relationships with each other to be meaningful and valuable, and maybe have some lifetime friendships in there, but at least good friends while they're in school, what do we need to build on a daily basis to get there? And Kevin has another line. I'm not going to get it completely correct. Talks about you want to have a full funeral or a packed funeral because you impacted lives. Like, he really thinks to the end
Yeah.
of, like, on this earth as well. Like, when it's all said and done, will people come to my funeral because I impacted them? And hopefully the stories they say isn't like, oh, he was a good coach, or he was funny. Not that stuff isn't important, but hey, he impacted me. He helped me make some wise decisions. He taught me some leadership skills. And a lot of times the things that we want to teach players don't really show up till maybe after they're years away from us.
That's right. We're just planting seeds in the moment,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I think that's a common misconception I had and still struggle with is, we always want to build these lifetime lessons, but in the moment, it's hard with teenagers.
Yeah.
So if we can get them to teach, just think about the end in mind. It could be something small. It could be the end of this week. It could be the end of your freshman season. It's hard to get a freshman to think about the last game their senior year. Let's be real. So we've got to just incrementally build this. And by the time they're a senior, I believe it'll all click. And then as they deal with their freshman teammates, they can deal with them and communicate them in a better, more positive manner.
I love getting to hear different activities or conversations that they have with their teams, and what you said about, thinking about that funeral. Yeah, for these young people, that just seems so far away. Like, I don't know how old you are. I just turned 40.
Yeah.
I'm sitting around thinking, golly, like, it's closer than it used to be.
Yeah.
But for these players, I was listening to Tyler Costin at PGC grad school years ago. He was running it. I was one of the coaches helping him, and directors helping him. And he had all the players and staff write down our obituary. And I'm going through this, writing things down, and not really realizing the common thread between mine and everybody else's in the room was not about wins, not about money, not about success, all those things. It's, how did I treat people? How do I want people to remember me? That's a powerful activity for players to get to go through.
Absolutely. And I think those moments, we need those moments to really think about the bigger picture, because we're so on the daily basis paying bills, being a husband, being a dad, being whatever, a wife, mom, whoever's listening. But sometimes it's good to just sit down and think, all right, what's the bigger picture here? My season's 5-20, I'm 20-5, whichever. But is my goal the same with what I want at the end of the season? The relationships, the impact on the players, the impact on the parents, how the fans how the fans view the team, how we impact the student body, like all those things that, I don't know if we really sit quietly and think about or even discuss with peers too often.
Yeah. And we get so busy. It's so busy just going from one activity to the other.
Yeah.
And I think, what do you feel like is that relationship between talking about legacy and the end, but also that relationship between them focusing on what's right in front of you, winning the day? What's the relationship between those two?
Well, I think with teenagers, and maybe it's all of us, we just have to really think about, like, go into every moment. How do I say this? Go in every moment with, like, with your mindset already there. Like, don't just be like, all right, I'm going to go to practice. I'm going to go to a game. Like, you need to be thinking, how do I want this practice to be? Like, if I make every practice a really good practice, then I'm going to live my legacy and be a really great practice player, or get the most out of my, or get better 1% every day, whatever you want to do. I think you need to have some type of, like, your mindset, your motives. Like, why are you even playing the game? Like, I always say it to players all the time, like, what if we were going to go 0-25 this season? Would you still play? I mean, really, like, I'd still coach it. Big deal. If they fired me, big deal. It's out of my control. But, like, if you knew we'd go 25-0 or 0-20 or whatever, like, you'd still all play, right? Yeah, we love. Okay, so that's kind of why do you love the game? Is about the friendships, relationships. And I do think a closer, more connected team will connect to maybe an extra win, an extra 1 or 2 wins for sure. I think just having the positivity, going into the locker room, knowing you've got each other's backs, and all that stuff. Again, it's hard to think about the legacy thing in the moment, but when they're on their senior night, when the games are, or they just are the freshmen in college thinking back to their, man, I wish I was playing basketball right now. All that stuff, and hopefully they have not regret. They have a bunch of positive thoughts and feelings, and not that it shouldn't be easy and it shouldn't have been tough and they shouldn't have, been coached hard. But I think that they think back like, all right, it was worth it. The sacrifice, not being able to have a job, being busy every Friday night, not be able to, busy every Thanksgiving and Christmas. And it's kind of like what coaches think about. Like it was worth it. It was worth it. And here's why.
What an interesting question to ask. I don't think I've ever asked a team is, would you still play if you knew that you were going to go 0-25? And it just immediately sent me back. Not many players ever have a season where they actually know at the beginning that the end isn't going to be what they want. And so I played basketball at Baylor from 2000 to 2004. Going into my senior year is when our program, and you'll probably remember it well, when our program completely fell apart. Teammate shot and killed other teammate. New coaching staff, lost 10 teammates that summer. Coach Drew comes in. That's going into my senior year. And so we were told before that season started that no matter if we had been really good or not, we wouldn't get to go to postseason. Like literally, there was an ending to our season before it ever began. And the regret that I have is that I struggled with that for a long time. It wasn't until midway through the year that myself and our teammates really, like, what's the purest motivation of why we play? It's to compete. Yeah. It's our 5 versus their 5. And once we did adopt that mentality, man, we had 6 scholarship players to play against Kansas, all those big schools, and we actually did amazing things. And so I love that question to ask a team. I've never thought about asking them that before. The cool thing is actually have experience in that, and which I think is kind of rare, but I didn't mean to launch into that whole thing there. Just the connection between that question and what I went through, that's huge.
Yeah, no, I mean, your experience is obviously unique and you have a great story, and you can connect that better than I can with players, for sure. But I think that's a valid point, because I know that all these coaches, and I've done it and I'll do it again sometime, but I think that, we get up there and we talk about championships, we talk about not losing any home games, and your big rival, but you may just be the least talented team on a nightly basis. You may lose 2 guys with an ACL tear. You may really bust your tail and lose a lot of games. And no one wants to hear that. No one wants to admit it. You can be really well coached and you can bust your tail, and night in and night out, you're facing college level dudes and you don't have any, and you're just going to struggle in the win-loss column. That doesn't mean you didn't compete just as hard. You may compete harder.
Yeah.
You might be better coached. You may have kids who are more coachable and practice harder. And I don't think everybody wants to admit that, but it's true. You can do everything right, and it may not reflect on what the parents and administration care about with the wins and the losses. So I think we have to have realistic conversations for those of us who are at schools that we're not rolling out college level guys.
And the beauty of, I think, the brilliance of what Coach Drew did that year, and I think the challenge for a lot of us that might be in those situations, is changing the definition of success.
100%.
It's not just if it's only the state championship, well then 99.9% of all the other teams were a failure.
Right.
And we have to, sometimes success is showing up every day, even when it's really hard, and overcoming adversity. Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.